Have you ever woken up one morning, stepped out onto your front yard with a cup of coffee, and wondered why your lawn looks like it's been dunked in a tropical rainforest? That's me, Daniel Harper, call me Dan, living in Pinewood Grove, Oregon. One day, I shuffled outside, eyes blinking rapidly from sleep, and saw the ground soaking wet, puddles everywhere, like someone had just hosed down my yard with an ocean. I took a sip of coffee, looked around, then touched the old spigot lying haphazardly on the grass. It was warm, slightly warm, like it'd been used 5 minutes ago. What the hell? I live alone, no kids, no roommates, not even garden gnomes secretly watering some underground village, just me, my coffee, and a lawn that clearly knows how to water itself. At first I thought, maybe the sprinkler timer's busted, then I remembered, I don't have a sprinkler system. My house has just this one spigot, nothing more, nothing less. So who used it? I'm not the type to imagine things, but this was too weird. I stood there, staring at the puddles glinting under the Oregon sun, wondering if I was dreaming. No, this was real, and I started noticing other strange stuff. Last month's water bill spiked, not just a little, but shot up like I was filling a pool every night. But I don't have a pool, the backyard's just got some wilting strawberry plants, and a rusty grill I haven't bothered fixing. So where's the water going? I frowned, took another sip of coffee, and thought, if someone's using Dan Harper's spigot without asking, they're in for big trouble. Because I'm not letting this slide, not ever. After that weird morning, I, Daniel Harper, Dan for short, decided not to let the self-watering lawn drive me nuts. But you know, once suspicion sets in, your mind spins like a coffee grinder. I live alone in Pinewood Grove, Oregon, where spigots don't have legs to run around on their own. So if I didn't turn it on, someone sure as hell did. I took my last sip of coffee, set the cup down, and started my own Sherlock Holmes investigation, lazy version, no deerstalker hat. First, I checked the spigot closer. It was off its hook on the garage wall, a few feet from its usual spot, like someone dragged it and dropped it in a hurry. I touched it again, still a bit warm, though cooler now. No water leaking from the pipe, no holes in the hose. I even knelt down and sniffed the grass. Don't ask why, I don't know what I expected, but it just smelled like damp earth and some fertilizer from last week. Clearly this water didn't bubble up from the ground like a magic spring. Someone turned on my spigot, and I needed to find out who. I started paying closer attention. The next day, I woke up early, tiptoed to the front yard at 6 a.m. with slippers and a fresh coffee. Nothing, grass dry, spigot still. But by noon, after a grocery run, the grass was wet again, this time with a water trail stretching from the spigot across the path. I muttered, "What the hell?" Then checked my water bill on my phone. Last month it doubled, from $30 to $60, like I was watering a field, not a tiny yard. I don't have a pool, no pressure washer, just some desperate strawberries and a pitiful rusty grill. Where's the water going? I decided to ask the neighbors. First up was Elsie, the 80-year-old lady on my right, who I swear only leaves her armchair when she's out of cookies. She shook her head. I didn't hear anything, Dan. But if it's garden gnomes, leave them some milk. I gave a weak laugh, thanked her, and went to Jim's on my left, a dad of 4 always busy with his kids. He shrugged, "No, but if you find out who, let me know. I'd borrow it too." No one knew anything, but I started feeling like I was in a horror movie, the kind where the main guy uncovers a creepy secret right under his nose. That night, I couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard a trickling, soft, but enough to jolt me out of bed. I threw on a jacket, grabbed a flashlight, and snuck to the backyard like a ninja, or at least a clumsy ninja, nearly tripping over the trash can. The sound came from the spigot, but when I got there, it stopped. The hose lay loose on the grass, its end still dripping. I swept the flashlight around, no one, no footprints, just the strawberry plant's shadows swaying in the breeze. I muttered, "All right, water thief, you just messed with the wrong guy." The next morning, I grabbed a notebook and jotted it all down. Time of the sound 2:03 a.m., spigot position off by 5 feet, grass condition wet by noon. I'm no detective, but I'm an engineer. I like logic, and this made no sense. If it's not a leaky system, it's got to be a person. I sipped my coffee, stared at the spigot like it might confess, and thought, if you won't talk, I'll make whoever's using you show themselves, because no one touches Dan Harper's property without paying for it. After a few days of amateur sleuthing, I, Daniel Harper, Dan for friendly, still hadn't caught the mystery water thief in Pinewood Grove. But you know, when you're set on finding the truth, the universe has a way of throwing the answer right in your face. It was Saturday, and I'd just driven back from the hardware store with a shiny new spigot lock in my bag, ready to end this nonsense. I parked, stepped out, and there she was, Linda Voss, the new neighbor, who I swear is the living embodiment of every suburban nightmare. Linda stood there, smack in my yard, wearing a loud floral shirt and a sun hat the size of a satellite dish, dragging my spigot across the grass like she owned it. I blinked, thinking I was hallucinating from lack of coffee, but no, she was hooking it up to a portable pressure washer, about to clean her concrete porch across the street. No permission, no words, just the hiss of water spraying like I was the main sponsor of her garden spa. I stood frozen, mouth open, still holding the lock bag, wondering if this was some bizarre dream. Linda moved in 3 months ago, and in that time, she'd turned Pinewood Grove into her personal stage. She used to be a banker, rumor has it fired for differences with her boss. I bet she wanted his job. Since arriving, she struts around with a notebook, complaining about everything. Elsie's house paint is too bright, Jim's grass is too long, even the morning birds are too loud. She's not the HOA president, but from the way she points and critiques, you'd think she's Oregon's queen. I cleared my throat, stepped forward, trying to stay calm. Linda, what are you doing with my spigot? She looked up, waved like we were lifelong pals, and grinned. Oh Dan, hope you don't mind, just borrowing some water to clean my porch. Your spigot's got great pressure. I blinked again, stunned by the audacity. Don't mind, Linda, it's my spigot, my water, my bill. She tilted her head, still smiling. Oh, in this neighborhood, everything's community property, right? Neighbors share. I nearly choked on imaginary coffee. Last I checked, my house isn't a commune, and water doesn't fall from the sky, it comes straight from my wallet. I stepped closer, voice firming. Linda, I don't like you using it without asking. She paused the spray for a second, looked at me like I'd said the dumbest thing ever, then shrugged. Come on Dan, don't be petty. I'm sure the HOA wouldn't mind, we've got to be good neighbors, right? Then she turned back, flipped the spigot on, water splashing her porch like nothing happened. I stood there, clutching the lock bag, feeling like I'd been slapped with pure arrogance. No apology, no shame, just Linda Voss, and her warped logic that anything within reach is hers. I went inside, head steaming, staring at the spigot through the window like it had betrayed me. The spiking water bill, the wet grass, the nighttime trickles, it all had an answer. Linda. She wasn't just using it once, she'd probably been at it from the start, turning my yard into her free water station. I sipped cold coffee, muttered, all right Linda, if you want to play this game, Dan Harper's going to give you a fight to remember, because no one steals my water and gets away with it. After watching Linda Voss turn my spigot into her personal tool in broad daylight, I, Daniel Harper, Dan for ease, decided this wasn't blowing over like a breeze. I'm not one for fights, I'm an engineer, I fix things, not break them, but the way Linda waved and called it community property lit a fire in me. I stood in my Pinewood Grove kitchen, watching her spray her porch like she was filming a pressure washer ad, and thought, okay Dan, stay cool, handle this like an adult first. But you know, sometimes adults have to deal with people who refuse to grow up. The next day, I waited for Linda to show. She didn't disappoint. 10 a.m. She's dragging my spigot across my yard again, this time to water her newly planted daisies. I took a deep breath, stepped out with a forced smile, coffee cup in hand like a mental shield. Linda, I said, as gently as I could, can you stop using my spigot? It's mine, and I really don't like this. She stopped spraying, glared at me under that giant sun hat, then smirked. Oh Dan, you're too serious. I'm just watering flowers. Your spigot's better than mine, great pressure, you should be proud. Proud, I nearly spat coffee across the yard. Linda, I'm not proud when my water bill doubles because of you, please use your own. She shrugged, but mine leaks. Besides, we're neighbors, we help each other. Then she went back to watering, like I was air. I stood there, gripping my coffee cup, feeling like I'd just talked to a wall wearing a hat. But I don't give up that easy. That afternoon, I hit the hardware store, bought the toughest spigot lock they had, stainless steel key only. I installed it, locked it tight, and thought, done, Linda's not cracking this. I even double-checked, gave it a shake to ensure it held, then went to bed with a smug grin. Linda might be Pinewood Grove's self-crowned queen, but she's not breaking steel with that brazen attitude. Next morning, I woke early, stepped outside feeling victorious. But guess what? The lock was gone, not unlocked, gone. The clasp was snipped clean, edges sharp like a blade, obviously a bolt cutter's work. I stood there, staring at the pathetic metal scrap on the grass, feeling slapped again. Linda didn't just use my spigot, she wrecked my property to keep doing it. I glanced across the street, she wasn't there, but her spotless porch and glistening daisies mocked me. This month's water bill, I checked later, hit $75, triple normal. I don't water that much, don't wash cars, don't do anything but accidentally fund Linda Voss. I decided to try again, harder this time. I knocked on her door, bill in hand as proof. Linda answered, still in florals, looking at me like I was a late delivery guy. Linda, I said, calm but firm, did you cut my spigot lock? She laughed, really laughed, like I'd told a joke, then said, oh Dan, that lock, it was so ugly, ruining the neighborhood vibe. I just helped you clean it up. Besides, your spigot's too good to waste. I held up the bill, this isn't a game, I'm paying for your water. Stop, or I'll report it to the HOA. She tilted her head, smiled sweetly, go ahead, I bet they'd back good neighbor spirit. Don't stress Dan. Then she slammed the door, leaving me with the bill, and steaming anger. I went back, sat in the kitchen, staring at the spigot through the window like it was the ultimate traitor. Linda didn't just steal water, she made me a fool. I sipped cold coffee, muttered, all right Linda, if you won't stop, Dan Harper's going to make you my way. Because no one cuts my steel lock and gets off free. After Linda Voss turned my steel lock into scrap, I Daniel Harper, Dan for short, felt like I'd lost a battle without firing a shot. I sat in my Pinewood Grove kitchen, staring at the $75 water bill like it was a Vegas debt notice, and thought, I can't fight this shamelessness alone. Linda didn't just steal water, she trashed my property, and grinned like it was a favor. I needed backup, and that's when I thought of Roger Tate, a neighbor a few houses down, the one guy in the area who might get the Linda nightmare. Roger's a former Marine, about 50, living with an old dog named Buster, and a collection of American flags he hangs all over his front yard. He's quiet, the type who only speaks when it matters, but cross him, and you'd better run. I once saw Linda hassle Roger about his biggest flag being too flashy, ruining the neighborhood aesthetic. Roger just stared, shrugged, and hung an even bigger one. I like that kind of guy. So that afternoon, I grabbed my coffee, my mental weapon, knocked on Roger's door, hoping he'd have advice, or at least some sympathy. Roger opened up, wearing a faded tee, holding a beer. Dan, he nodded, your face says trouble, come in. I stepped inside, sat on the couch, and spilled it all, the wet grass, warm spigot, Linda dragging it across my yard, the cut lock, and her community property line that made me want to punch a wall. Roger listened, sipped his beer, then laughed, a raspy vet-only laugh. Linda Voss, he said, that woman's the definition of a pain. She reported me to the HOA over my flags, said they disturbed the view. I told her to look elsewhere, but she still sent a 3-page complaint letter. I nodded, relieved I wasn't Linda's only target. Roger, I've tried locking it, talking, even threatening the HOA, but she won't stop. Any ideas? Roger smirked, eyeing me like he'd found a comrade. You need proof, Dan. Linda's slippery as an eel, she'll deny everything unless you catch her red-handed. Get a camera, small, hidden, motion sensor kind. I used one to catch kids egging my yard, works like a charm. I frowned, a camera, sounds extreme. He laughed louder, extremes when I hung a double-sized flag to spite her. A camera's just step one. I started seeing the appeal, but what if she notices? Roger shrugged, Hide it under the eaves or in a bush. She won't spot it. Linda's too busy nitpicking everyone else to look around. And if you catch her on video, the HOA's got to act, or at least you can post it online for the whole neighborhood to see." I grinned, picturing Linda exposed on the Pinewood Grove Facebook group. "Roger, you're a genius, but what if she breaks it again?" He took another sip. "I'll watch your yard when you're out. Buster loves barking loud. If Linda sneaks over, you'll know." I left Rogers feeling like I'd gained an ally in this relentless war. On the way home, I stopped by the electronics store, grabbed a tiny battery-powered camera I could tuck under the garage eaves. I'm not big on surveillance, but Linda forced my hand. I sipped my coffee, stared at the still spigot in the yard, and muttered, "All right, Linda, if you want to play water thief, Dan Harper's got a screen surprise for you. Just wait." Because thanks to Roger, I now had a plan, and a buddy ready to bark for me. After Roger Tate gave me a mental boost, and the camera idea, I, Daniel Harper, Dan for friendly, felt ready to take on Linda Voss. But before turning my yard into a Hollywood set, I thought, why not try the official route one more time? I'm an engineer, I like doing things by the book, before rigging something crazy, so I decided to file a complaint with the Pinewood Grove HOA. The group I swear was created to protect Linda instead of the rest of us. I sipped my coffee, opened my laptop, and started typing. I drafted an email as long as a novel, sent it to Marjorie Wells, the HOA president, and a woman famous for replying, "We'll look into it," to every issue. I laid it all out, Linda dragging my spigot across the yard, my water bill jumping from $30 to $75, the steel lock cut with bolt cutters. I even attached photos of the wet spigot and the bill as proof. I ended with, "I don't want to escalate this, but please clarify this community properties thing." I hit send, proud like I'd just filed a Supreme Court brief, then sat back with a sliver of hope that the HOA would side with me. 2 days later, Marjorie replied. The email was so short I almost thought she mistyped. "Thank you, Dan, for reporting this. We encourage residents to resolve minor disputes amicably. The HOA won't intervene at this time." I reread it, blinked, then muttered, "Amicably. Linda cut my lock, and you call it a minor dispute." It was the HOA's way of saying, "Deal with it yourself, Dan." I sipped cold coffee, feeling betrayed by the system I pay dues to every year. But I wasn't done. If Linda wanted to play this way, I'd show her I'm not easy to mess with. I printed the bill, took more spigot photos, and sent a second email, tougher this time. "Marjorie, this isn't a minor dispute. Linda damaged my property, and stole water. I need the HOA to do something, or I'll handle it myself." I hit send, thinking the tone would make them take it seriously. But then Linda struck back, and she was faster than I expected. 3 days later, I heard from Jim next door that Linda had called an emergency neighborhood meeting. I wasn't invited, but Roger was there. He recounted it with a smirk when I stopped by his place later. According to Roger, Linda stood in her living room, notebook in hand, preaching like a politician on the campaign trail. "Dan Harper is so selfish," she declared, voice dripping with drama. "He locked his spigot, refusing anyone access, when this neighborhood needs community spirit. I just borrowed some water, and he acts like I'm a criminal." Roger said she even dragged his flags into it to win the crowd, claiming some people here don't know how to share. A few neighbors nodded, one scared Linda would target their yards next if they didn't back her. Roger just sat there, sipping beer, whispering to Buster, "She's in for big trouble now." I nearly spat coffee across Roger's table when he told me. "She called me selfish, I'm paying for the water she uses." Roger nodded, "Yep, but Linda's a master manipulator." Marjorie was there, said nothing, just took notes. "The HOA won't touch her, too much hassle." I gritted my teeth, "So what do I do?" Roger smirked, "Camera Dan, set it up. If the HOA won't help, you need proof to protect yourself. Or better yet, show the neighborhood Linda's true face." I nodded, feeling like I'd just been handed a compass in a storm. I went home, stared at the spigot in the yard like an old enemy, and muttered, "Fine, Linda. If the HOA won't act, Dan Harper will. You want a neighborhood meeting? I'll give you a screening you'll never forget." I took my last sip of coffee, opened the camera box Roger suggested, and started planning. Because if Linda thought she could paint me as the villain in Pinewood Grove, she was dead wrong, very wrong. After the HOA and Linda Voss's neighborhood meeting turned me into the bad guy in some Pinewood Grove eyes, I, Daniel Harper, Dan for ease, decided it was time to stop playing nice neighbor. Marjorie Wells could sit on her notes, but I wouldn't. Roger Tate was right. The camera was my only shot at catching Linda red-handed and showing the world who she really is. I'm not a surveillance fan, but when a giant sun hat-wearing nut cuts your steel lock and calls it community spirit, you act. I sipped my coffee, grabbed the tiny camera I bought after talking to Roger, and got to work. I picked the perfect spot, under the garage eaves, tucked behind a wilted strawberry planter I hadn't replaced. The camera was pebble-sized, motion-activated, with a week-long battery, exactly the kind of gadget I loved as an engineer. I set it up that night, sneaking around like a ninja in a movie, though I nearly knocked over the trash can and woke the neighborhood. I checked it on my phone, crystal clear view, spigot, front yard, and the path to Linda's. "All right, Linda," I muttered, "you want my water? Go for it, but this time I've got proof." I went to bed with a rare grin, picturing her caught on film. 2 days passed, nothing. I checked the camera every morning, but just saw squirrels and Jim biking with his kid. I started thinking Linda had given up, maybe her meeting was her final win. But then Tuesday morning, my phone pinged at 5 a.m. I bolted up, rubbed my eyes, opened the app, and there it was. Linda Voss, in a floral robe and fuzzy slippers, creeping across my yard like a cartoon villain. She grabbed the spigot, hooked it to a cheap inflatable pool, I swear she bought just to spite me, and turned it on. Water gushed, filling the pool while she yawned, clearly thinking no one saw. I sat in bed, laughing so loud, I nearly woke all of Oregon. The footage was pristine, Linda, spigot, pool, all caught in the dawn's dim glow. I saved it, watched it 3 times, and thought, "You're done, Linda." But I didn't stop there. Roger was right. The neighborhood needed to see this. I posted the clip to the Pinewood Grove Facebook group with a simple title, "Who's using my water at 5 a.m.? No tagging Linda, no extra comments, just let the video speak." Then I sipped my coffee, sat back, knowing the storm was coming. Within an hour, the group exploded. Elsie commented first, "Good heavens, that's Linda Voss. She's taking your water, Dan?" Jim chimed in, "I knew it. She asked to borrow my spigot once, but I said no." Roger, my hero, left a curt, "Caught you." Other neighbors jumped in, some laughing, some outraged, realizing Linda had bugged them too. Then Linda replied, "I'd been waiting for this." She wrote, "This is a misunderstanding. I just borrowed it because my spigot's broken. Dan didn't need to blow it up like this." I nearly spat coffee on the screen. Misunderstanding? She cut my lock, dragged the spigot at midnight, and calls it borrowing? I replied, short and sweet, "Linda, my water bill doesn't misunderstand. Stop it." The group lit up again. People shared tales of Linda griping about their lawns, or borrowing stuff without returning it. Roger messaged me privately. "Nice work, but Linda won't go down easy." He was right. That afternoon, I saw her outside, arms crossed, glaring at my house, like she could drill through the walls. She didn't say anything, but I knew she was plotting. I sat in the kitchen, re-watched the footage, and muttered, "Linda, if you think a Facebook excuse will save you, you're wrong. Dan Harper's got a camera, and I'm not done yet, because thanks to Roger, I had proof, and the neighborhood was behind me, at least for now." After the video of Linda Voss sneaking my spigot at 5 a.m. blew up on the Pinewood Grove Facebook group, I, Daniel Harper, Dan for friendly, felt like I'd just scored a major win against her. The neighborhood buzzed, Roger Tate chuckled over text, and I sat in the kitchen with my coffee, thinking Linda might finally quit her water stealing. But you know, I forgot one thing. Linda's not the type to back down. She's the type to burn your lawn, just to prove she's right. And sure enough, as Roger predicted, she didn't stay quiet. That afternoon, I was trimming my poor strawberry plants, when I heard pounding on the door like a sledgehammer. I opened it, and there was Linda. No florals, no sun hat, just a red face and eyes ready to swallow me whole. "Dan Harper," she snarled, "who do you think you are, filming me and posting it online like that? You violated my privacy. I'll sue you, and you'll regret humiliating me in front of the neighborhood." I blinked, still holding the pruning shears, trying not to laugh. Linda, I said, you dragged my spigot across my yard, cut my lock, and now you're talking privacy. I just recorded what happened on my property. She huffed, that's slander, I'll call the cops, the HOA, anyone I need to. Then she stormed off, leaving me amused and slightly worried. I figured it was just hot air, Linda loves drama. But the next morning, I stepped outside, and nearly fell over. My strawberry garden, my little pride from spring, was trashed. Soil covered in salt, plants wilted like they'd been tossed in a desert, and I swear I saw faint slipper prints from Linda's fuzzy ones. The camera didn't catch it, the angle only covered the spigot, not the backyard. I stood there, gripping the shears, muttering, she dared. Linda didn't just counterattack, she declared war, and she picked the dirtiest way possible. I ran to Rogers, told him everything. He sipped his beer, eyeing me with half sympathy, half amusement. You poked the hornet's nest, Dan, he said. Linda hates losing and wrecking gardens is her style. She once dumped paint on Jim's kid's bike, because it parked near her fence. I gritted my teeth. What do I do? Call the cops? Roger shook his head. Not enough proof, footprints don't hold up, but you've got a camera, use it. Linda will come back, and this time you'll catch her clearer. I nodded, knowing he was right. Linda wouldn't stop, and I needed a knockout. I went home, checked the Facebook group. Linda had posted a novel, Dan Harper's Turning This Neighborhood Hostile. He filmed me without permission, threatening my reputation. I only borrowed the spigot, because my plumbing's bad. He could have helped, but chose to shame me. I nearly spat coffee again. Help her, I replied. Linda, I asked you to stop. You cut my lock, and now trashed my garden. Who's threatening who? The neighborhood split. Elsie backed me, Jim doubted both. Some sided with Linda to avoid her wrath. I stepped outside, stared at the dead strawberries, and felt my blood boil. All right, Linda, I muttered, you want to play dirty? I'll give you dirtier. I called her out one last time, standing at her door. Linda, what did you do to my garden? She opened it, smirked. Oh, your garden. I don't know anything. But if you want a fight, go ahead and do something. I dare you. She slammed the door, leaving me with anger and new resolve. I went home, sipped my last coffee, and thought, a dare? Dan Harper doesn't back down from a dare, Linda. She'd trashed my garden, but she didn't know I was about to trash her reputation, and this time, all of Pinewood Grove would see. After Linda Voss wrecked my strawberry garden and dared me at her doorstep, I, Daniel Harper, Dan for ease, knew the days of playing nice in Pinewood Grove were over. She didn't just steal water and cut locks, she turned my little garden, where I sweated all spring, into a salty graveyard. Linda wanted war? Fine, but I'm not the type to slug it out fist to fist. I'm an engineer, I calculate, I build, and I'd give her a payback she'd never forget. I sipped my coffee, sat in the garage, and started plotting. First I tried simple. I went back to the hardware store, bought a small alarm for the spigot, the kind that shrieks when touched. I set it up that night, hid the wires under the grass, and thought, she pulls it, the whole neighborhood hears. But morning came, and I found the alarm shredded, wires sliced. Clearly Linda's bolt cutter work again. She'd left a note, quiet down Dan. I stood there, holding the cut wires, muttering, okay Linda, small tricks won't cut it with you. I went to Roger Tate, laid it all out. He sipped his beer, chuckled. You thought a buzzer would scare Linda? She's the type to disable a fire alarm to sleep in. I nodded. I need something bigger, something she'll regret every time she sees that spigot. Roger smirked. You've got a camera. Catch her again, but this time don't just post it, make her bring the trouble on herself. I frowned. What do you mean? He shrugged. I'm no engineer, but if I were you, I'd turn that spigot into a trap. She likes water? Give her water, the kind she doesn't want. The idea hit like a light bulb. I remembered driving past a construction site on Pinewood Grove's edge, a big wastewater tank for portable toilets, stinking to high heaven. If I hooked my spigot to that, I laughed out loud, startling Roger. Dan, you okay? He asked. Fine, I said. Better than fine. I've got a plan. I went home, opened my garage toolbox, full of everything from screwdrivers to spare pipes from my engineering days. I needed a system, clean water for me, waste water when Linda turned it on. Simple, but genius. I got to work. First I tested colored water, bought red food dye, mixed it in a separate tank, hooked it to the spigot, via a side valve. I flipped it, red water sprayed the yard, pretty like a horror flick, but I thought, not enough. Linda will wipe it off, and keep going. I needed something stronger, smelly, dirty, undeniable. I hit the site the next afternoon, brought donuts as a bribe for the workers. Testing irrigation, I lied, slipping a $20. One guy shrugged, use the waste tank, but don't wreck the pump. I grinned, no worries, just one night. Back home, I built a dual valve system, one line from my clean water, one from the waste tank, routed underground through backyard bushes. I dug, hid plastic pipes under the grass, linked them to the main spigot with a custom switch. I tested the waste line into a sealed bucket, a brown stinking liquid shot out, so foul I nearly passed out. Perfect, I muttered, holding my nose. I added a remote switch in the garage, letting me toggle between clean and waste, without Linda knowing. Outside, the spigot looked normal. Inside, it was a ticking bomb. I checked the camera, still working, clear angle. I left the spigot coiled neatly like bait, sipped my coffee, and thought, Linda, you dared me. Here's Dan Harper's answer. I didn't just want to shame her, I wanted her to drown herself in her own game. Roger stopped by that night, saw me covering the pipes with grass. You're nuts, he laughed, but I love it. When's she turning it on? I shrugged. Soon, she can't resist. I went to bed, dreaming of Linda screaming in her yard, and muttered, you trashed my garden, Linda. Now I'll trash your perfect day, with your own water. Because this time, Pinewood Grove wouldn't just see a video, they'd smell the fallout. After finishing my dual water spigot system, one side clean, one side filthy, I, Daniel Harper, Dan for short, felt like I'd crafted the perfect revenge machine in my Pinewood Grove garage. Linda Voss had trashed my strawberries, cut my lock, and dared me to do something. Now the trap was set, camera ready, and I just had to wait for her to bite. I sipped my coffee, eyed the neatly coiled spigot in the yard, like lethal bait, and thought, you want water, Linda? I'll give you water, the kind you'd never dream of. This wasn't just payback, it was art. I didn't wait long. Linda's a creature of habit, arrogant but predictable. The next morning, Wednesday, I woke early, checked the camera on my phone, nothing, just squirrels and wind. I flipped the garage remote to wastewater mode, left the spigot in place, then pretended to leave, drove around the block, parked a few houses down, and waited. I knew Linda liked striking when I was gone. She thought she was clever, and right on cue, at 10 a.m., my phone pinged. I opened the app, and there she was, Linda in lime green yoga gear, dragging my spigot across the yard, with a smug grin, like she'd just won Neighbor of the Year. She suspected nothing, the spigot looked normal, coiled tight, no hint of the nasty trap I'd rigged below. Linda hooked it to her portable pressure washer, the one she'd used to clean her porch last week, and dragged it to her yard's center. I sat in my car, gripping the phone, heart pounding like I was watching an action flick. She turned it on. At first, just a gurgle, odd sounds from the underground pipe I'd tied to the waste tank. Linda tilted her head, frowned, clearly confused. Then it hit, a thick brown stinking stream, blasted out like a geyser coating her washer, and splattering across her yard. Linda screamed, a blood-curdling wail that echoed through Pinewood Grove. I nearly dropped my phone laughing. The wastewater sprayed her porch, hit her white plastic patio set, and turned her lawn into a reeking swamp in 3 seconds flat. She flailed, trying to shut it off, but slipped on the wet grass, tumbling into the brown muck. The camera caught it all, from her smug grin to panicked face, then rolling like a slapstick star. I whispered, "There's your water, Linda," and kept watching like it was my masterpiece. She finally shut it off, but not before the waste splashed her windows and soaked her pricey yoga slippers. Linda stood there, caked in filth, yelling something I couldn't hear on camera, probably my name with a few choice words unfit for this friendly neighborhood. Neighbors poked heads out, Elsie covered her mouth in shock, Jim dropped his glass, and Roger, my hero, stood on his balcony filming the whole thing. I drove back, parked out front, and stepped out like I'd just been grocery shopping, an empty bag as my prop. Linda saw me, charged across the street, still dripping mud, slippers slapping the grass, and shrieked, "Dan Harper, what the hell is this? It's sewage. Are you trying to kill me?" I kept an innocent face, shrugged. "Linda, you told me to do something, so I did. You like my water, right?" Her face flashed red, then green, then red again, like a broken traffic light. "I'll sue you. This is a bioattack. The HOA will kick you out." I smiled lightly. "Go ahead, but this time it's not from my bill, you chose it." She screamed more, then stomped back, leaving a mud trail. I went inside, opened my laptop, watched the camera footage, sharp, perfect, worth every second. Roger texted, "You nailed it. Got my balcony angle, sending later." I laughed hard, sipped my coffee, and thought, "Linda, you trashed my garden. I trashed your day." But I knew it wasn't over, she wouldn't quit. I saved the video, ready to post it on the Pinewood Grove Facebook group, and muttered, "You want war, Linda? Dan Harper's giving you a battlefield, and this time, the whole neighborhood's watching." After the day Linda Voss got blasted with wastewater from my trap right in her Pinewood Grove yard, I, Daniel Harper, Dan for friendly, felt like I'd won the Revenge Gold Cup. She screamed, slipped, and left a mud trail as she fled, all caught in 4K glory by my camera. I sat in the kitchen, sipped my coffee, re-watched the footage with an unstoppable grin. Roger Tate texted right after, "Sending you my balcony video, better than an action movie." I knew this wasn't just a personal win, it was something the neighborhood needed to see. Linda wanted to play dirty, I'd make her famous. I edited my camera footage, trimmed the slow start, added Linda versus the Spigot, fight of the century, as an intro, then posted it to the Pinewood Grove Facebook group. I kept the caption short, "Linda wanted my water, here's what she got." Hit send, sat back with my coffee, knowing the social media storm was coming. Within 30 minutes, the group blew up. Elsie commented first, "Good Lord, Dan, is that sewage? She deserved it." Jim added, "I laughed till I cried. Linda's never borrowing my spigot again." Roger dropped a clapping emoji, and neighbors piled on, some shocked, some howling, a few suggesting I do it again. Then the video spread beyond Pinewood Grove. Someone, probably Jim's kid, shared it on Reddit with "Neighbor steals water, gets epic karma." In 24 hours, it racked up thousands of upvotes. Strangers across the US chimed in, "Real hero, gimme that spigot blueprint." YouTube jumped in, a comedy channel, uploaded it with dramatic music and slow-mo of Linda's fall, hitting 1 million views in 2 days. I sat there, watching the numbers climb like a national debt counter, thinking, "Linda, you want to sue me, now the world knows who you are." The neighborhood split hard. Elsie brought over homemade cookies, saying, "Dan, you're Pinewood Grove's pride." Roger stopped by, slapped my shoulder. "You did it. Linda can't face anyone now." But some ones who nodded at Linda's meeting, whispered I'd gone too far. Jim relayed, "They're scared Linda will retaliate on the whole block, but no one'll tell you straight." I shrugged. If they wanted to defend Linda after all this, that's their mess. Linda didn't stay quiet long. 3 days post-sewage, she filed a city complaint, accusing me of illegal wastewater installation in my yard. An inspector came, a middle-aged guy with a tired smile. I showed him the spigot and buried pipe. "It's temporary," I said. "Just teaching a neighbor a lesson." He checked it, laughed for 5 straight minutes, then said, "No violations, not permanent, not hazardous long-term." Gotta say though, you're creative. I offered him coffee, he declined, joking, "Only if it's not from your spigot." I laughed, knowing I was clear, but Linda didn't face me again, not then. I saw her in her yard, glaring at my house like she could set it ablaze, but she didn't cross over. Her porch still stank, her plastic chairs stained brown, and Elsie said she'd hired cleaners who refused because the smell's too bad. Roger's balcony video spread too, adding her distant screams for extra laughs. I texted him, "You should direct." He replied, "Nah, you're the star, Dan." I sat in the kitchen, eyed the spigot outside, and muttered, "Linda, you trashed my garden. I trashed your rep, fair's fair." But I knew she wasn't done. Linda's not the quitting type. I sipped my coffee, thinking, "Come back, Linda. Dan Harper's still got a camera, and this time Pinewood Grove's with me, or at least laughing with me. Because now, not just the neighborhood, but the internet knew, don't touch my spigot. After the video of Linda Voss getting drenched in wastewater spread across Pinewood Grove and beyond, I, Daniel Harper, Dan for friendly, thought I'd won the final battle. She went quiet for days, her yard stinking, her reputation shredded on Reddit and YouTube. I sat in the kitchen, sipped my coffee, thinking Linda had finally learned her lesson. But you know, I underestimated her tenacity. Linda wasn't just arrogant, she was stubborn as an Oregon rock. When the city inspector dismissed her illegal wastewater system complaint, I figured it was over. Big mistake. A week after the sewage incident, I got an official-looking envelope slipped under my door, no stamp, just a cheap law office logo from a nearby town. Inside was a lawsuit letter, typed in all caps with spelling errors, accusing me of bio-assault, personal endangerment, and property destruction. Linda demanded $5,000 for her porch furniture, and peak absurdity, mental distress from the smell. I read it, nearly spat coffee on the table, and muttered, "Mental distress? You trashed my garden, and dare say that." But I didn't laugh long. Linda was serious, and I needed to fight back. I took the letter to Roger Tate's. He sipped his beer, skimmed it, then chuckled. "She hired a lawyer from a copy shop? This is cheap intimidation, Dan. But gear up, Linda won't quit." I nodded. "I've got videos, bills, and HOA rules. She can't win." Roger smirked. "True, use the evidence. Don't let her flip this." I went home, dug up everything footage of Linda dragging the spigot, skyrocketing water bills, photos of the cut lock. I even found the HOA bylaws, Section 3.1c, no resident may trespass on another's property, to use utilities without permission. Linda violated it blatantly, and I had proof. The hearing was quick, not a big courtroom, just a local chamber with a judge who looked ready to retire. Linda showed up in a cheap Laser, towing a scrawny bespectacled lawyer who seemed like he'd never won a case. She ranted, voice full of drama. Dan Harper deliberately humiliated me. He hooked his spigot to sewage, ruined my home, and made me a laughingstock. Her lawyer added, "We demand compensation and punishment." I stood there, holding my evidence stack, trying not to laugh. The judge eyed me. "Mr. Harper, your defense." I handed over the video, Linda pulling the spigot at 5 a.m. plus bills and lock photos, then said, "Sir, she stole my water for months, damaged my property, and I just protected my home. Here's the proof." The judge watched the video, frowned as Linda fell in the waste, then asked, "Miss Voss, why'd you use his spigot?" Linda stammered, I just borrowed it because mine's broken." The judge shook his head. "Borrowing without asking is stealing." "What about the lock?" She went silent, her lawyer too. 5 minutes later, the judge banged the gavel. "Case dismissed. Mr. Harper broke no laws. Temporary system, no public hazard. Miss Voss, ask before using others' stuff next time." Linda flushed, glared at me, but said nothing. I thought that was it, but the HOA jumped in. Marjorie Wells sent a $200 fine for environmental disturbance, clearly from Linda's whining. I was furious, called Marjorie direct. "You're fining me for Linda stealing my water?" She faltered. "We have to be fair." I cut her off. "Fair? I've got video of Linda breaking HOA rules, trespassing on my property. Review it, or I'll send it to the whole neighborhood." 2 days later, Marjorie called back, voice reluctant. We reviewed. Linda's fined $700 for repeated violations. "Your fees cancelled." I grinned. "Thanks, Marjorie. Pick the right side first next time." Linda went quiet after. No lawsuits, no sabotage. I sipped my coffee, eyed the spigot outside, and thought, "Linda, you wanted a legal fight? Dan Harper's got evidence, and now even the HOA knows you're wrong." Roger stopped by, slapped my shoulder. "You won, engineer." I nodded. "Thanks to you too." Because this time, not just the internet, but the law backed me. Linda had no moves left. After Linda Voss lost in court and got slapped with a $700 HOA fine, I, Daniel Harper, Dan for friendly, felt like I'd run a Pinewood Grove marathon and crossed the finish line with gold. The sewage video was still viral, the neighborhood rallied behind me, and even Marjorie Wells had to grudgingly admit she'd messed up trying to find me. I sat in the kitchen, sipped my coffee, looked at the spigot outside like a trophy, and thought, Linda, you're done, for good. But you know, Linda wasn't the type to slink away quietly, not right away. A few days after the fine, I saw Linda in her yard, no florals, no sun hat, just a sour face and eyes avoiding everyone. Her porch still reeked, furniture stained brown, and Jim said she'd called cleaners 3 times, but no one would come, because it was too awful. She didn't confront me anymore, no lawsuit threats, just silence, the eerie kind before a storm. Roger Tate dropped by, sipped his beer, and said, "She's licking her wounds, Dan. But don't relax, Linda's the type to come back with a knife in your back." I laughed. "You worry too much. She's out of moves." But then, a week later, I saw a moving truck parked at Linda's. No warning, no goodbyes. Workers loaded it up, planters, smelly furniture, and that wretched pressure washer that started it all. Linda stood there, sunglasses on, not speaking to anyone, just got in and left. I stood in my yard, coffee in hand, watching with a mix of satisfaction and disbelief. Elsie walked by, whispered, "She sold the house, Dan, couldn't take the shame anymore." I shrugged, good for her, and good for us. Linda's place hit the market that weekend, and days later, a young couple, Tom and Ellie Carter, bought it. They moved in with a toddler, bringing smiles and a cookie tin as a neighborly hello. I met them their first day when Tom knocked. "Hi Dan," he said. "We heard about the Spigot saga, wild stuff. But don't worry, we've got our own, and won't borrow a thing." Ellie grinned. "Thanks for making this place exciting." I nearly dropped my coffee. They'd seen it on YouTube and were still this cheerful. I laughed back. "Thanks for not being Linda." Then I gave them the old spigot, wastewater free now, as a peace token. The neighborhood transformed. Mornings I'd step outside. No mystery wet grass, no weird trickles, no spiking bills. Roger kept hanging bigger flags, Elsie turned Linda's tale into local lore, and Jim occasionally teased, "Dan, next time use pink water for fun." I wasn't Linda's punching bag anymore, now I was Spigot Guy, a nickname I didn't mind. Tom and Ellie brought friendliness, they even threw a small BBQ, invited me and Roger, and no one mentioned Linda, like she was a fated nightmare. I sat in the backyard, eyed my new strawberry plants, replacements for Linda's salt pile, and reflected. This wasn't just about water or a spigot, it was about boundaries. Linda thought she could trespass on anyone, but I, with Roger's help and a little camera, proved her wrong. I sipped my coffee, muttered, "Linda, you're gone," and Pinewood Grove's more peaceful than ever. But I didn't fully relax. The camera stayed up, the spigot gleamed new, and I knew someone like Linda never vanishes forever. So I kept things ready, not out of fear, but because I'd learned, in this neighborhood, you protect what's yours, even if it's just a spigot. After Linda Voss bolted from Pinewood Grove and Tom and Ellie Carter brought a fresh breeze, I, Daniel Harper, Dan for friendly, felt like the neighborhood could finally breathe. No more dragged spigots, no soaring bills, just the Carter kids' laughter and Elsie's baking wafting over. I sat in the backyard, sipped my coffee, watched my new strawberries sprout, and thought, "Linda, you're out, and Dan Harper won." But you know, I'm an engineer. I never believe things end for good, especially with someone like Linda. Peace lasted 2 weeks. One evening, I opened my email and saw a message from a stranger named Mike in Cedar Hills, a suburb a few miles from Pinewood Grove. Subject: Linda Voss is my new neighbor, help. I frowned, clicked, and nearly spat coffee on the screen. Mike wrote, "Dan, I saw your YouTube video, legendary. But Linda just moved here, and she's started griping about my wind chimes, yelling at my cat for crossing her yard, and yesterday, I caught her dragging a neighbor's spigot to wash her car. Any tips?" I laughed hard, couldn't believe it. Linda didn't quit her habits, just changed turf. I wrote Mike back, spilling it all from the camera, the wastewater rig, to how I flipped Linda with HOA rules. I sent him the dual valve sketch I'd made, now detached from my spigot, and suggested a small camera like mine. "Use wastewater if you must," I typed, "but try colored water first as a warning. Linda won't learn, she needs a face-full lesson." I attached a PDF I dubbed Linda Defense Protocol, joking it was a survival guide for any neighborhood she hit. Mike replied fast, "Thanks, war's on." I grinned thinking, good luck Mike, She doesn't know what's coming. Days later, Mike updated me. He'd hooked a neighbor's spigot to a purple water tank, not smelly, but loud. Linda turned it on to wash her car. Result? Her car splotched purple, her screaming in the street, and local kids filmed it, posting to TikTok with #LindaStrikesAgain. I watched, laughed till it hurt, texted Mike, nice, wastewater next, if she keeps it up. He replied, planned, thanks legend. I shrugged, legend's a stretch, but I liked Linda catching hell everywhere she went. In Pinewood Grove, things stayed calm. Roger Tate hung a new bigger flag, told me, you made Linda a fleeing myth, Dan. Tom and Ellie invited me to play with their kid, and I saw they'd set up a sprinkler, clean water, no drama. I sat in the backyard, eyed the retired spigot, and muttered, Linda, you can run, but you can't hide. Because thanks to the internet, every time she pulled a stunt, someone'd be ready, and maybe they'd learned from me. I didn't fully relax, the camera stayed, the remote switch sat in the garage, and I bought a shiny new spigot, set out front as a reminder. Not because I thought Linda'd return to Pinewood Grove, she wouldn't dare, but because I knew this neighborhood, or any, could spawn a new Linda. I sipped my coffee, watered my strawberries and thought, if someone tries, Dan Harper's ready, with clean water or waste, their choice. The story ends with me smiling, eyeing a neighborhood more peaceful than ever, but still watching that spigot, because in Pinewood Grove, or anywhere, boundaries are something you hold, and I'd learned to hold them damn well. The tale HOA Linda kept stealing my hose, so I rigged it to a waste tank. I rewrote reflects many facets of life in the US today, especially in suburbs like Pinewood Grove, where homeowners associations, HOAs and community culture loom large. The clash between Dan Harper and Linda Voss isn't just a funny revenge yarn, it's a microcosm of real issues, personal boundaries, abuse of shared rights, and how tech and social media shape neighborly ties. Linda, with her arrogance and claiming Dan's spigot, embodies those who shrug off private property in America, a society that prizes individual liberty. Dan, with his camera and DIY wastewater rig, showcases self-reliance and ingenuity, core American values when facing injustice. The lesson here isn't just don't touch other stuff, it's how to guard your boundaries in a hyper-connected world. Dan tried talking, locking the spigot, and HOA complaints, classic US legal steps, but when those flopped, he turned to tech, camera and smarts wastewater to reclaim justice. It's a reminder that in modern America, where laws and community rules can lag like Marjorie Wells's responses, you've got to be proactive and adaptable. Record evidence like Dan's videos, find allies like Roger Tate, and don't shy from personal initiative, but stay within legal lines, like when Dan dodged Linda's lawsuit. Plus, the videos spread on YouTube and Reddit shows social media's power. It can shield you, but also demands accountability. So the practical takeaway is in today's US, respect others' boundaries, but if yours are crossed, be ready, sharp, and use the tools around you, because peace, like Dan finally found, is worth the fight. If you enjoyed watching Linda get her lesson from my spigot, hit subscribe for more hilarious neighborhood battles. Thanks for watching, and see you next time, with more drama, from Pinewood Grove.